Today we are working on Psalm 66. Psalm 66 is a psalm of gratitude, and like Psalm 150, it's very popular to use when something has worked out for us, or one of our psalm spells has given us the results that we desire, and we want to make that permanent. It's also got a very interesting traditional use of being worked when you want to free someone from demonic possession or spirit possession. And you can just use the regular psalmic formula, obviously, for that. But some people like to write the psalm out and fold it up and have the person wear it around their neck. I find that the psalm formula is sufficient, but sometimes these talismanic type practices can be helpful as well. I think for me today, Psalm 66 I'd like to use to bring wealth. To bring wealth. Wealth means good, and whatever good you're in need of, we are going to use Psalm 66 to bring more of that good. So that can be money, that can be happiness, that can be any kind of prosperity or wealth that you desire. Wealth meaning all good. So the way we work psalm magic is very simple and extremely effective. We take the psalm in question and we read it out loud once all the way through without stopping. Then we take that same psalm and we go through it verse by verse, and we dig for hidden occult meanings within the psalm. We see those as magical seeds, and these seeds of magic are very unique and very powerful. And when those seeds are planted in our deep minds, they actually take root and they grow and they blossom forth, and then they bear fruit after their kind. And the way we plant those seeds is by doing this work, by doing that two-step formula, reading the psalm out loud all the way through once without stopping, and then going back and really digging and contemplating and searching and doing our best to apply what we find there to whatever the situation at hand is. So that's what we're going to do right now, you and I, with Psalm 66. Make a joyful noise unto God, all ye lands. Sing forth the honor of his name, make his praise glorious. Say unto God, how terrible art thou in thy works. Through the greatness of thy power shall thine enemies submit themselves unto thee. All the earth shall worship thee, and shall sing unto thee. They shall sing to thy name, Selah. Come and see the works of God. He is terrible in his doing toward the children of men. He turned the sea into dry land. They went through the flood on foot. There did we rejoice in him. He ruleth by his power forever. His eyes behold the nations. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. Selah. O bless our God, ye people, and make the voice of his praise to be heard, which holdeth our soul in life, and suffereth not our feet to be moved. For thou, O God, hast proved us. Thou hast tried us as silver is tried. Thou broughtest us into the net. Thou laidst affliction upon our loins. Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou broughtest us into a wealthy place. I will go into thy house with burnt offerings. I will pay thee my vows, which my lips have uttered, and my mouth hath spoken when I was in trouble. I will offer unto thee burnt sacrifices of fatlings, with the incense of rams. I will offer bullocks with goats. Selah. Come and hear, all ye that fear God, and I will declare what he hath done for my soul. I cried unto him with my mouth, and he was extolled with my tongue. If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. But verily God hath heard me, and he hath attended to the voice of my prayer. Blessed be God, which hath not turned away my prayer, nor his mercy from me. So make a joyful noise unto God, all ye lands. So the lands are the different parts of the earth. The different parts of the earth are the different parts of our lives which are manifest. So it's not saying all the good stuff in our lives. It's not saying all the stuff that we like the most. We're saying everything that is manifest in our lives. Everything that is manifest in our lives We are commanding to make a joyful noise unto God. Remember, in the King James Version of the Bible, God is always translated from Elohim, and Lord is always translated from the Tetragrammaton. Elohim represents a collective. That means there's one power, one source, one force, one substance in all the universe. And even though this one force, source, and substance is manifest as a host of angels, there is unity, there is oneness, there is only one power. And that is what we pray to, regardless of whether we call this power Elohim or the Tetragrammaton. In these Psalms, there is one power, one source, and one force. And because there is only one source, there's only one, nothing can oppose it, nothing can thwart it. It cannot be opposed. So let's look and see real quickly what we're praying to. We're praying to that which is part of us, that is connected to us. It is not something that is separate and distinct from us. A lot of people think that God is way, way out there. But if you want to find God, you'll find God way, way within you, way inside, deeply inside you. And so the deeper you go inside your mind, the deeper you go inside your being, there you will find more and more connection to infinite intelligence. So it says here that we are going to command that all of these manifest parts of our lives to make a joyful noise unto God. So no matter what's going on in your life, you are making a joyful noise unto God. And this is, for our purposes today, our formula for wealth. Sing forth the honor of his name, make his praise glorious. To sing and praise. To sing in the Psalms, you can sing, and singing is good for you. But in magical psalm work, singing is talking about making a disturbance. There's very strong sound waves, and those sound waves represent spiritual thought vibration that disturb that which exists. So all of the things in our lives we are commanding to make a joyful noise, and then to sing forth the honor of God's name and to make praise glorious. God's name, remember, the name of something in the Psalms means its nature. So even though we do use sacred names of God in magic, that's not necessarily what it's talking about. What we're talking about here is the qualities of God: infinite intelligence, infinite love, divine love, perfect love, infinite law, the life principle itself. Those are the names of God. Infinite truth, infinite presence, those are the names of God. And so when you sing forth the honor of his name and make his praise glorious, we are saying that no matter what is going on in our lives, we are going to quicken that. We are going to disrupt it by singing forth the praise. And to praise something means to enthusiastically acknowledge how good it is. So we are going to use our inner voice. Yes, you can use your voice, but you're thinking our inner voice. We are thinking that part of our minds which has the ability to send forth vibration, to disrupt things, to disrupt all manifestation in our life so that it starts to conform to a higher vibration. And that higher vibration is being sought through praise, through praise. What are we praising? We are praising the name of God. We are praising the qualities of God. So going through and being very excited, being very happy, very joyous about the fact that there is infinite intelligence. There is perfect love. There is divine law. There is perfect, infinite, divine truth. There is life. There is spirit. There is soul. You are an extension of God. You are an extension of perfection. We're praising all these things. And it says, make his praise glorious before we get off of this. Glorious, another wonderful seed there. To glory, that which is of glory, that which makes to glory, and that which comes from glory. That which is glorious. Glorious and glory can also represent two different spheres on the tree of life. Sometimes sphere number 8 and sometimes sphere number 6. So Well, this is a longer psalm, so we can get off of verse number 2, but there's so much in verse 2. You could spend a whole hour on verse 2. Say unto God, how terrible art thou in thy works. So we are being commanded to tell God how terrible he is in his works. And we say he just because of the convention of this particular system. But God is pre-gender. There is no he there. Okay, so we could say they or it if we wanted to instead. But we're saying unto this creative force, you are terrible in your works. Terrible meaning terribly this or terribly that, means awe-inspiring. Awe-inspiring. The only thing that awe is reserved for is God, not people, not angels, not saviors, not spirits, none of that. No manifestation of infinite intelligence is worthy of your awe, except for the source itself. So that's what we are saying to God. You are awe-inspiring. You are awesome. Through the greatness of thy power shall thine enemies submit themselves unto thee. Who are the enemies of God? The enemies of God are everything that isn't real, everything that doesn't exist, everything that God did not create. So everything that God did not create are capable of giving us torment, are capable of giving us torture, are capable of giving us pain and despair. But God's will is not for any of that. God doesn't know pain. God does not know despair. God knows only perfection. And so we want the enemies of God, meaning those things that are not real, those things that God did not create. We want, through the greatness of God's power, that those enemies submit themselves unto God. So that means that we don't have anything but God's will in our lives. All the earth shall worship thee, and shall sing unto thee. They shall sing to thy name, Selah. So this is what we are promising God. This is our promise, is everything that we've done, everything that we have in our lives, whether we think it's good, whether we think it's bad, no matter what it is, all manifestation, that's all the earth, we are going to command it to sing and worship God. And when we sing and worship God, what is worship? Worship means work. Worship means work. God's very, very interested in you dedicating your work to God. Much more interested, I believe, in you doing that than you going to some service somewhere or some ritual somewhere. It's much more interesting, I think, to infinite intelligence that we dedicate not that we can't have rituals, not that we can't have church services, those are fine, but our true worship is work, is what we do in the world, how we interact with our fellow human beings, what we are contributing to this world. That's worship. That's real worship. And so when it says, all the earth shall worship thee and shall sing unto thee, we are dedicating everything that we do in this world to the praise of infinite intelligence. Remember, praise means enthusiastically acknowledging that it's good. Shall sing unto them. So to sing again is to disturb the vibrations that are status quo. We want that. We constantly want to be a disturbance to the status quo here on earth. That's God's will for us, because God's not into the status quo. God's not into the world as we understand it. God's into perfection. God wants us to have heaven. God wants to have that world that God created for us, not the pseudo world that we're living in. So we want that disturbance constantly. Come and see the works of God. He is terrible in his doing toward the children of men. I love this one. We could do this as another hour, just this one verse. Come and see the works of God. So we are commanding all parts of our mind, all parts of our body and mind and experience and life here to come and see, just behold how terrible God is in his doing toward the children of men. Who are the children of men? They're your thought forms. They're the thought forms you create. You create just like God creates you. You're a thought form. That's who you are. You're a thought in the mind of God. And so you have that same creative power and you have thoughts. Now we want God to be terrible in his doing toward the children of men. Remember what terrible means: awe-inspiring, filled with awe. That's the whole idea of going into when we do things like the solar light meditation. We're saying, I want you to take my thought vibrations and reorganize them so that they conform to your thought vibrations. I want to make sure that I'm a direct extension of your will and not some sort of errant thought form that's got some sort of neurotic will that's going to cause problems for me and other people. So that's a wonderful, wonderful verse. He turned the sea into dry land. They went through the flood on foot. There did we rejoice in him. There's not just the parting of the Red Seas. There's several stories of people going through the sea, armies going through the sea because God was helping them out. And so we're looking at how many times have you had to go through the sea? How many times have you had to go through a flood on dry land? And there's no possible reason for your success, but you succeeded anyway. If you were really honest with yourself, you will see that there are time and time again that you have gotten through things almost, if not completely, unscathed. And those are normal experiences. That's how it should be here. And that's how we want to constantly live our lives, under that protection, under that guidance, so that everything works for us in the way that God's will demands and dictates. Now, the only time that doesn't happen is when we work really hard at having things be our own way, separate and distinct from infinite intelligence. It's just like having a great recipe for a chocolate cake and just saying, yeah, I know this tastes good, but I want to do a whole different recipe, which is fine, except for if you don't know how to make a new recipe and you just decide to throw stuff together and teach yourself, it's not going to be very good. We want God's recipe. We want God's recipe, and we want God to guide our own creativity so that whatever we do decide to make works beautifully and works in consort with infinite intelligence's will for us. He ruleth by his power forever. Right there. Isn't that powerful? God ruleth by God's power forever. It means it's never going to change. It's never been different. It will never be different. And we want that. We want this power in our lives running the show. That doesn't make us automatons. I think that's what we convince ourselves. Well, I don't want to just have God's will be done, because then what'll I do? And what we notice is that when we start to work magic like this and we really start to move into, I want God's will. I want to do God's will. I want to be the follower. I don't want to be the leader. Then everything starts to take off for us and things get really fun and we get really creative and all kinds of cool stuff happens for us. It's not boring at all. His eyes behold the nations. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. Selah. Okay, so the nations are overarching major thought forms in your life. So God's eyes behold, understand what your thought forms are. And we are asking, since you know what my overarching thought forms are, make sure that your will prevails, not the rebellious will of my ego mind. Oh, bless our God, ye people, and make the voice of his praise be heard. The people are all the thoughts, not just the main thought forms, but all the thoughts in your mind. So bless our God, ye people. You're just commanding your mind again. All my thoughts are all about praising and blessing here. And make the voice of his praise to be heard. That means I want to hear it. And how do you hear something in your mind? By seeing the results. You know what you're thinking by looking at your life and what you're experiencing in your world and how you're interacting with it and responding to the things in your world. That tells you what your thoughts are all about. Which holdeth our soul in life and suffereth not our feet to be moved. So God holds your soul in life. Isn't that nice to know? And God's forever. It never ends. So that means your soul is forever. And suffereth not our feet to move. If we say God's will be done rather than mine, then our feet will never be moved. We're always going to be right where we're supposed to be, doing what we're supposed to be doing, never having a problem. For thou, O God, hast proved us. Thou hast tried us as silver is tried. Now, proving and trying meaning refining us, the alchemical nature of God. We want God to burn away everything that is not like God's will for us. And then we become tried like silver, or even like gold. Thou broughtest us into the net. Thou laidst affliction upon our loins. Now, God's not really doing that to us. God's not doing that to us. God's doing that to our thought forms. Okay, to us, we don't need to be in a net. But God needs, when we give God permission to correct for us, we can ask that God be like somebody that's panning for gold, right? And is going to just sift through every aspect of our body, mind, and affairs and get rid of the dross and keep the gold. Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou brought us into a wealthy place. Okay, so this again is talking about how no matter what's going on in our lives, it's not God's will that we have problems. God can use our problems. Not going to waste one. It's like, you got a problem? Well, rather than just solving the problem, let's use it as an alchemical experience and become better because of the problem. That's what God can do. So it's not that God's saying, well, we need lots of problems and pain and misery in order for this to work. God's saying, you don't need any of that. But since you're doing that, since you're creating that for yourself, let's use it. Let's not waste the experience. Let's go ahead and meet you right where you are. And we're going to make everything perfect right where you are. But thou brought us into a wealthy place. So no matter where you are, God will turn it to wealth. Turn it to wealth just because you're saying yes to this experience. I will go into thy house with burnt offerings. I will pay thee my vows. This is just talking about how I understand that I can't have wealth without giving. It's impossible. And it's not because God's trying us or God's playing games with us. It's just how God operates. It's the truth of the universe. That's how God works. God has everything because God gave everything. So you can have everything if you give everything. And who are you giving everything to? To everything. So you want to give all to all. That means that you want to give to God. So this is a great psalm if you're into tithing, because you can recognize this. You can say, I will go into thy house with burnt offerings. I will pay thee my vows. And you're just reminding yourself that when you give, you are open to receiving more, which my lips have uttered and my mouth hath spoken when I was in trouble. So every time you've been in trouble in the past that you've come out of it, you've had to have found some way to give. There's no way around it, even if you don't realize it. But the fastest way out of a problem is through asking God, where can I give? Where can I give? How can I give? I will offer unto thee burnt sacrifices of fatlings with the incense of rams. I will offer bullocks with goats, Selah. Now, we don't need to do that. We don't need to give burnt offerings. This is a very ancient culture. But remember that this culture was talking about we're giving God the best. We're giving God our finest. We're giving to God first. And the reason why we do that is not because that will make us poor. It's because that will bring us wealth. And that's the way God wants it. That's God's desire for us, is to be wealthy. And so we're going to give all to God so that God can give all to us. And it's a beautiful thing. Come and hear, all ye that fear God, and I will declare what he hath done for my soul. So this is a very important time in the psalm, because this is talking to all of the doubting parts of our minds. Just come on over. Just all of those thought forms that say, no, none of this can work. I'm always doomed. I'll never get what I need. Whatever your doubts are, bring them up. Come on and bring them up. And I'm going to declare to you what God has done for my soul. And you know that God has done everything for your soul. If you look really honestly at your life, you've been blessed beyond measure. And where there's not been blessings and there's been problems, you know that that's not God's will. And you can see that. You can be very clear about that. I cried unto him with my mouth, and he was extolled with my tongue. I cried unto him. When the Psalms have us crying, it's usually the fact that we recognize that we need to make the first step. It always has to start with us. We have to be the catalyst. We have to be the instigator. So I cried to him with my mouth, and he was extolled with my tongue. That's telling you right there what you need to do. If you got a problem, you talk to God with your mouth. You turn and say, Infinite Intelligence, I've got this problem, and I know that you can fix it, and I know that all I need to do is bring praise into this situation. I know that all I have to do is find out how to give in this situation, and you're handling it for me. We're being very clear with that. You don't just do it sort of haphazardly or absent-mindedly. You're very clear with your intentions. If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. So important to understand that God doesn't hear things that are not of God because they are not happening. So a lot of people, when they pray to God, they say, oh, my prayers aren't answered. But they don't understand they weren't praying to God. They were going as far as God was concerned because they weren't making sense. The only understanding that God has is what we're talking about here, praise and giving. Praise and giving. Then, if you have praise and you're giving, you're in a position to receive everything that you need and you desire. But if your prayer is, I don't have anything, and why don't you help me, and what's wrong with everything, and wah, God doesn't get that. God can't understand that. God doesn't hear that. That's iniquity. That's a type of iniquity. Anything that's not praise and giving is iniquity in this particular sense. But verily God hath heard me. He hath attended the voice of my prayer. Always God hears your prayer, but God doesn't hear your non-prayer that you're calling a prayer. But you start praising and you start giving, that's a prayer, and that's going to be taken care of like that. Blessed be God, which hath not turned away my prayer, nor his mercy from me. So blessed be God, right there is a very powerful incantation. You could have that be a mantra for yourself. Blessed be God. Blessed be God. Blessed be God. Blessed be Elohim. Blessed be infinite intelligence. Blessed be perfect love. Any of the qualities of God, any of the names of God, which hath not turned away my prayer. God will never turn away a prayer. So when it seems like God's turning away a prayer, it's because you weren't really praying. You were speaking in gibberish. The only prayers that are answered are prayers that are prayers. And the prayers that aren't answered weren't prayers to begin with. They were gibberish. So you need to remember the only real prayer, at least according to this psalm, is praise and giving. That's prayer, and that always gets results, no matter what the problem. Blessed be God, which hath not turned away my prayer, nor his mercy from me. There we are back on sphere 4, which most of these psalms like to hang out on, at least for a minute. And that is mercy. God will never withdraw God's mercy from you. But it can seem like God's withdrawn God's mercy from us when we are not thinking along the lines of God, and we are thinking all by ourselves in our own little way. So if you feel like there's no mercy, if you feel like your prayers aren't being answered, come back to this psalm and it'll re-educate you on what mercy is and what prayers are and how powerful they are and how you cannot fail. And in this particular case, how you can't fail to become wealthy through God. So keep on coming back to this psalm every day till you get a sense that whatever it is that you brought to the psalm is being taken care of. You'll get a sense of peace and certainty about it. Once you get that sense of peace and certainty, you can stop working on that particular topic and you move on to something else. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.